Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is the FloTrack podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, longtime listeners. You can find the show on the FloTrack podcast YouTube page, but maybe it's your first time. Maybe it's your first time listening on audio. You can check that out wherever you listen to podcasts, or if you want to hop on live, you always can.
I will say, if this is your second time listening to the podcast or watching it, and your first time was Friday's podcast, you have a lot of trust in us, and I really appreciate that, because if you're willing to come back after that podcast, hey, much love. Very thankful.
I had forgotten that, and I assumed you had forgotten it as well. It's nice to see that you're processing it. Do we have any updates on that developing story?
We don't have any updates.
Okay.
No.
We hope to have some positive news in the future. Is that what we say?
We're going to try to get an interview with Abby.
Yeah.
Hopefully later this week. She's in town for Texas Relays, which is looking like to be a good meet to be at. You know, there's a bunch of stars coming. Abby's going to be there. Sha'Carri Richardson's going to be there. So there's a bunch of other notable sprinters. They're all running 4x4s and 4x1s and 4x2s. So that should be exciting. Coleman might be here maybe, because if he trains with Abby, and Abby's here, then maybe Coleman will be here.
One thing I've learned from the Texas Relays entry lists, it's not always accurate.
Yes.
I mean, it's accurate in that they were entered, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm talking about the pro fields here.
Yeah.
I guess that's true with any collegiate meet where pros show up at, and you look at the relay list and you get really excited, and then you get about half, maybe, of those runners.
Yeah, I mean,
even if it is half, though, it's still pretty good.
It's with all entries. The day that the Stanford invite entries went out, Natalie Cook was on it the same day that it was announced that she's out for the season. But she was on the entry list for a 5K. So
hard to keep track. All right, before we get in the show, update the bracket. It's been a wild March Madness. Very few people have any teams left, present company included. Gordon got knocked out, I think, on day 2 of the whole tournament. I was looking strong until the past couple of days. I still had 3 of the final 4 in, and then nope. Didn't have the FAU San Diego State side of the bracket. But Owen still holding on to first place. He was first place going into the weekend, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But what's funny is Max is 690 points. That's how many he
done.
has now. He's tapped out. So sort of interesting. It's just sort of the situation when someone takes a big lead in the marathon and they're just hanging on in the later miles, and you can see the pack closing in. I think that's going to be the case with a lot of brackets, because right behind is someone with the name Corb Dog, who has 680, but they have a max total of 11.6. They could win this thing by 500 points.
Because they have UConn.
Yeah, but UConn could lose.
Yes.
Very easily.
So basically, if UConn loses in the semifinals, then Owen wins. If UConn makes it to the finals, then most likely Corb Dog wins.
We got some other people down there who still have UConn in there as well, too.
We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, Owen and Corb Dog, down to those two for the undetermined prize, which we have yet to announce.
But it's going to be good.
It's going to be a great prize.
Especially because this year was so hectic.
In sports and like championship playoff situations, right?
Yeah.
Typically favorites do well. Sometimes favorites lose. But this is a unique year where none of the top 3 seeds made the Final Four.
Yeah.
None of the number 1 seeds made the Elite 8. Can you imagine a track race where the top 12 runners all did not make a final? Could that ever happen?
Pretty good. Oh, could it ever happen? No, it wouldn't happen. Maybe half. You get half knocked out in a weird 800 situation. Someone falls down. A 1500 gets a little wonky. Some time qualifier shenanigans. But no, not usually. To let you know how crazy this is, so I was out, but I had 470 points, which is not that many points. But overall, I'm in the 67th percentile still. And I've been done for a while. Like, there are a lot of very, very bad brackets this year.
Yeah.
Yours is what I'm talking about.
My bracket was bad. I was out after the second day.
But, yeah. Crazy, though. So our track bracket also busted when Tennessee went out. I don't think either of us had FAU or San Diego State.
Yeah, how are they in track? Does Florida Atlantic even have a track team?
Well, and then the other side, you have Miami and UConn.
Okay, so let's do track bracket with the Final Four.
Yeah.
So Florida Atlantic, who are they playing?
San Diego State.
San Diego State. The San Diego State doesn't have a men's program, right? They just have a women's program.
I believe so.
And then UConn, which they don't have a cross-country team, right?
Florida Atlantic has men's cross and indoor, it looks like. And then they had outdoor.
And then who's UConn playing?
Miami.
Miami, they got some track. They've been hosting a bunch of track meets the past few weekends. They're like really big at hosting meets.
Yeah, let's just give it to them.
So Miami, you're hosting track meets. You're going to win the title. Miami over Florida Atlantic. It's all about Florida. Florida relays. Imagine Florida relays the same weekend as a Miami versus Florida Atlantic final.
Some might say it'd be the greatest weekend in Florida sports history.
Wait a minute. Is Miami and Florida Atlantic competing at the Florida relays?
A question nobody's asking. Gordon continues to outdo himself.
We could have a situation where we'll know who's going to win the final based off of a 4x1 of Florida Atlantic versus Miami. That's what I'm looking at.
I don't.
So Florida Atlantic does not have a men's team, but they have a women's team.
But don't they have an indoor team? They had some indoor results. Oh, yeah, you're right. They do not. They do not.
Okay, so Florida Atlantic is not going to the Florida relays.
Well,
so
yeah,
this whole situation just went out the window. But they were at the Miami Hurricane Collegiate Invitational. Oh, they probably faced each other. All right, I'm diving too deep into it.
This is good.
I'm going with Miami, though. Miami. Who are you going with?
San Diego State.
Okay. That has been your March Madness update presented by no one.
Pretty exciting stuff. All right, here we go. Let's get into the heart of the show. Shericka Jackson runs 50.92 in Jamaica. Has run a couple 400s this year now. Ran a little bit indoors, but this is obviously the biggest result so far of her season. Anytime someone's sub 51 before April, you're going to take note. We obviously know her range is incredible. She's won medals in the 100, 200, and 400. She's got fast PRs all the way up and down. But this was a great start. You know, you see the short sprinters move up to the quarter and run some 400s to varying degrees of success. But with Shericka Jackson, it's really not fair because she was a 400-meter runner. She knows how to do it, and you can see that just because she's training for the 1 and the 2, she's still fast in the quarter.
This is once again. God dang it! I should have. My internet's coming out. Should have done some little bit of research on this one because I didn't do that. But I was gonna say, where does 50.92 rank last year?
And you talking about on the world list?
Yeah.
2022 women's 400, 50.92. This isn't that impressive of a stat. 31st? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, that's what I wanted. So you can a little get perspective. She ran a time that's like in the 31st range as her outdoor opener.
Yeah. She's a good 400-meter runner.
It's good, but it's not like a top 10 type.
No, it's good because it's pre-April. It's good because outdoors really hasn't even started yet. And it's good because she's presumably just still training for the 1 and the 2.
So is she going on the pre-April Mount Rushmore of 400-meter running?
This is pretty. It's a pretty elite and exclusive group. I thought it's a rust buster race, right? But if it's a rust buster time, that's a fast time.
It's a good
for
time
someone going out of their primary distance.
And she's probably definitely not even going hard in the paint in the final 100. Probably she's probably just kind of just cruising through it.
Yeah.
So
here's what I was thinking, and this is not something I think would happen, but I thought was sort of interesting because we've talked about how somewhat open the 400 is this year, depending on what some big-name 400-meter hurdlers do. On the women's side, I'm talking about. So 400, a bit open. And we know Shericka Jackson likes a double. I'm not saying anybody's going to walk away from a 1-2 double, especially to run the 4. But the 2-4 double, pretty interesting.
Is it possible?
So the 200-meter first round is the morning of the 400 final. More or less. Not easy.
That's not that bad.
Doable.
Yeah.
Doable sort of double. Again,
You can run like 22.9 and qualify out of the first round.
Yeah. Again, I don't think she's going to do it, but I was just wondering because we've seen the 1-2 a bunch. The 2-4, the Michael Johnson, the Marie-Jose Perec double. We haven't seen that. Felix talked about it for a while, potentially doing it. Shawnee Miller-Weibo.
So he put us out there.
I would love to see it. Now, what are her chances of – we both agree, and we're going to show the rankings a little bit. 200, she's a huge favorite after what she did last year. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So my thought is, all right, all things being equal, just in this world, let's just pretend the 100 and 400 are equally demanding on your body. Let's just say that for sake of argument. I know not everybody's going to agree with that or anybody's going to agree with that. Where's the better path to a gold medal? Is it in the 1 or is it in the 4? that's really difficult to say right now because you don't know who's going to be in the 4. But if all those 400-meter hurdlers just stay in the 400-meter hurdles,
Then it's the 4.
Yeah, because it's her, Paulino,
That's it.
and those are they would be the biggest names. Those would be the main favorites in that event. Versus the 100, where you have Shelly Ann there. If Elaine Thompson-Raw has a bounce back, there's a lot of depth, a lot of experience there. Again, I don't think she's going to do it, but I was curious enough to look up the schedule and see if it would work.
You just need an excuse to look at the schedule.
I love me some schedules.
What are you going to do once all of the permutations of potential doubles and triples and singles are out there?
They could solve this problem today
by making a
if
universal schedule.
Sebco just said has another press conference. He had one last week. A lot of people wrote about it.
Yep, they did.
He can have another one this week. Very few people will care about this press conference except me, and I'll be cheering in the front row unless it's a bad schedule. Yeah. But if he made it possible, you say, oh, at the moment I would say, hey, 2-4, you'd be like, wow, yeah, but that day 6 would be tricky because you'd know what a day 6 looks like because you've covered track for a long time and you know what it would mean.
I've been covering track for a decade.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think? Like, as a fan, you'd rather see her do the 2-4, correct? Just because of the historical connections of it. But
to be honest, I don't either, or I wouldn't care.
Just like with Curly. Curly, if in your perfect world, you'd want to see him do 1-4 or 2-4.
I want to see 1-4. I'd rather see Shericka do a 1-4 than a 2-4.
Yeah, but then that's asking to give up the
one that she's best at.
Yeah,
which is
by a big margin. Yeah. And that's the advantage that she has here. Is I think she has enough breathing room in that event too.
But like, it is interesting. I didn't think about it, but looking at the 4, if none of the 400-meter hurdlers go over there, it is going to be ripe for the taking. And Shericka is one of those athletes out there who could be like, wait a minute, that's a gold medal just sitting there. I could just walk up to it and pick it up.
Yeah.
But all I got to do is walk over there. I'm really distracted, though. There's nice sunshine, roses, and glamour of the 100. But if I just walk this way, you get a nice little gold medal.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, let's not discount Paulino. She had the fastest time in the world last year. She went sub 49. But, yeah, after that. Because last year it was Miller Wable, Paulino, and then there was a gap.
Yeah.
But if Jackson doesn't do it, and I know Nasser's coming back this year from the suspension, but can't count on that.
Nasser's coming back this year?
Yeah, so then you'd have Diggs getting in the mix. See, I think it's going to be too tempting. One of those 400-meter hurdlers is going to jump over. Even though maybe right now
are they going to jump over the hurdle to get to the...
They don't even need to jump over a hurdle. You just write your name down on the paper or send it in. Right now, it may not seem that way, but as it gets closer and we see more times roll in, and if no one emerges early season with a good 400-meter time, people are going to say, why don't we try this?
Kevin, you know what's going to happen.
What's going to happen?
They're all going to declare for both, and we're not going to know what they're actually running until 12 hours before the race.
12 hours before USA's for some of them.
Yeah, so but for the international athletes, they're going to be declared in all of them. Femke Bolt's going to be declared in the 400 and the 400 hurdles, and we're all going to be like, oh, she's doing a double, but really she's just picking one, and one is a safety valve. Like, Safana San enters every event every year because they can. Like,
well, but she also runs every event.
She didn't run almost every event. But, like, some of these athletes can be like, oh, yeah, and then they scratch. Like, Emmanuel Correa was always entered in a 4 and the 8, but really was focused on one or the other.
He's done it, though.
He's done it. No, he did it after not making out of the 800 semis. Then he went all in on the 4.
But he did it.
But he probably wouldn't have gone in the 4 if he made the 800 final.
I agree. There's not going to be one big day where everybody makes an announcement.
Yeah.
And
we're gonna be having this conversation literally the week of Worlds.
But I think it might come out in bits and pieces because the American athletes will have to say something. So that is Sydney and that's Britton Wilson. So then you at least know those two.
But and people like Michael Norman won't.
Well, Norman, because he has to buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd be like, are you going to actually take the spot or not?
You're right.
I don't know. I'm going to see how I feel.
This kind of makes it interesting, though, in a way. Lots to talk about.
Makes good for podcasting?
Well, you just say, hey, with this bit of information, what do we think this person's going to do? Norman's a little bit different situation with the buy. With the quarter, I'm just fascinated by it. I don't think she's going to do it, but it would be fun just to watch someone with that range try to. Because I think if you're running 50, if you're running that sort of time at this point in the season, it's not a guarantee that you're going to be sub 50 in the heart of the season, but it's a pretty big bet, especially with her experience. And when you run that fast in the 200, it just shows me her endurance really hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
Her endurance is still there, and she's gotten faster. Now she's a better 100-meter runner. She's a better 200-meter runner. What do you think is going to happen when she runs 400?
Speaking of 200, let's do the 200-meter rankings.
All right. Yes. Let's get to it. Don't show them yet, Nico. First of all, I just want to say off the bat, they're going to be like the 100 rankings. No one's going to like them. Everybody's going to hate them, probably.
I mean, we literally had to change the rankings 5 minutes before we went live on the pod.
Yeah.
Because
it
you were
got
very
contentious.
upset with a ranking that I did.
Yeah.
That you went in and you manually changed it. You put your little dirty influence and fingers on the women's rankings. So I was very
There was
frustrated
one
with it.
thing that I just had to fix. Ordinarily, I give you some latitude. I could not abide by one of them. Anyway, let's throw them up there. Let's go with the women first, Nico. We're going to go with the women first. The aforementioned Shericka Jackson checking in at number 1. No surprise there. Then Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, 2. Dina Asher-Smith, 3. Steiner, 4. Elaine Thompson-Herah, 5. Gabby Thomas, 6. Julian Alfred, 7. Tamara Clark, 8. Favor Ofili, 9. And then Munjinga Kambunji in 10th.
I can just hear the entire country of Jamaica screaming, you put Elaine Thompson-Herah 5th? The Olympic champion 5th? Behind Abby Steiner, who has never won a medal at the world championship level, even though she has won 2 medals, 4x1 and 4x4.
She has, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, you have to look at what happened last year and what to expect this year. And I think people are forgetting Abby Steiner had a unique year where she still got, she's 6th or 5th in the final?
5th.
She was 5th.
Mm-hmm.
But that was with starting her season in a December of 2021, running like a 300 in Louisville or something like that. Basically doing a long NCAA season where you're peaking in March, peaking for NCAAs, then peaking for USAs. The fact that she was able to still hold on to that, I think represents that if she didn't have to do all those other peakings, she probably could have at least got 3rd, I think. I think in a perfect day, if Worlds was on in June instead of late July, I think Abby Steiner gets at least 3rd in the women's 200. She's run more times, fast times, than any of the other women except for, I guess, Shericka. Like, you look at the amount of repeat sub 22-second performance she's done, it's very impressive. And it's a kind of, you got to give a little credit to the now. Yes, Elaine Thompson-Herah has the phenomenal resume, the career resume, an all-time great resume. But, so eventually change happens. And I think Abby Steiner, we're not even putting her top 3, but putting her above Elaine Thompson-Herah, I think is pretty controversial because Elaine Thompson-Herah is one of the GOATs coming out of Jamaica and fit. But how did she finish in the 200 last year?
She was 7th.
7th.
Seventh,
So.
yeah. But you could flip it around. You said Steiner didn't have a good race at Worlds. You could say the same thing about Thompson-Herah.
Yeah,
the rest of her
that's true.
season in the 2, her best time, or actually her fastest time, was the semis at Worlds, 21:97. That was her only time under 22 seconds. She went on. She won Commonwealth Games, though, so it's not as if she just disappeared. Steiner did, you're right, the long season probably factored in, but because she had a long season, she got a bunch of opportunities too.
Yeah.
She had that college schedule, so she cranked out a ton of fast times. If I was to set the over-under right now for medals in the 200 for the Jamaican women, it would probably be, you'd put it at 2.5, wouldn't you, basically?
And I would hammer the under.
Yeah.
They're not sweeping.
They could.
I think one of Abby, Dina, or Gabby will get at least bronze.
It's possible that a sweep is there. I don't think it's as strong of a lock. Also, in some of those other events, like we compare it to the U.S. men or in the 100 or the 200, where you have that 4th entrant. Now, maybe someone from Jamaica will pop up and be a clear 4th entrant. But on the U.S. side, the 4th best runner for the men in the 1 and the 2 was 6th, 5th. They're right there. Yeah, we argued about that one. I'm not going to say what I argued. I think people can tell like what Gordon argued on that one. So we had a little bit of back and forth and compromise. Thomas is interesting. Thomas injured at USA's, didn't make the team, but actually came back, ran really well, got 2nd at the Diamond League final. Alfred, she's got, if you're looking at the trending things, she's got an up arrow.
Yeah.
She's going up and up and up. And I can see in another month or so her continuing to climb after what she did indoors in the two. Tamara Clark was really solid last year. Favor O'Feely, of course, was incredible last year and ran some really good times already indoors this year. And then Kimbunji, extremely solid.
So one exercise we're learning about as we go through these rankings, we've done the 100, the 800, and the 200. We put a lot of emphasis on the 2022 result in Eugene in July, right? Because we're like, that's a world championship. That's how you decide the order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But when can that not mean as much? Is it a point it's going to mean everything up until the final? Or is there going to be a point when we're going to be able to like, yes, you did get third at Worlds last year, but like you just aren't the third best runner right now.
I think Shericka Jackson is going to get a lot of leeway this year.
Yeah.
And she doesn't need a lot of leeway because we see how fast she's already running.
Benefit of the doubt rankings.
Well,
okay, so
it kind of corresponds to the actual
So Shericka
ranking.
gets the most benefit of the doubt.
But it's similar to Noah in the men's side because the mark they put up was just out there.
Yeah.
So if for some reason Noah loses early season to Kenny B or loses to Knighton or loses to DeGrasse, you're going to look at that differently because there's just a big gap between one and everybody else. If Shericka loses to Elaine Thompson or Shelly and Fraser Price, you're going to give them more of a benefit of the doubt. After number one, though, 2 through, let's see what we say.
2 through 10.
Well, I'd say 2 through 6, maybe even 7 right now is really, really close.
Okay, yeah.
So if you get a bunch of Dina Asher-Smith versus Elaine Thompson-Hurrah matchups and they're going one direction, yeah, then you're going to throw out world championships. At that point, it doesn't mean anything because we're closer to these championships than we are to the previous ones. But someone like Jackson, because we all saw what she did, you're also thinking, all right, they're going to have – they can absorb a loss. They can absorb a bad stretch. And you're going to give them a little more leeway. Now, if they lose continually for a month, then you're going to start to discount that.
And we have precedent of this actually proving out last year. Elaine Thompson-Hurrah going into 2022 was like unanimous number one. She just won the double gold.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And then when she lost to Shericka, we gave a little bit of a benefit of doubt. We're like, oh, it's, well, you know.
Yeah, the story should have been how good Shericka was.
Yeah.
Instead it was, hey, is Elaine okay?
Yeah. But like, it happened once, and you're like, okay. And then it happened again, and then you realize, oh, Elaine Thompson-Hurrah is not 2021. She's having an off year, and it kind of represented she did still medal in the 1, but she was 7th in the 200. And so I think there's going to be a point we're going to have markers. Like, what's our dates where we get to like?
Well, it's amount of races, and that's the problem with track is we don't get enough.
Sometimes they go 1 for 1, and you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah, we're going to put a bunch of weight into the Doha Diamond League in mid-June. We're still looking at that. And mid-July, we're still looking at that. Yeah, it's hard. I think because then you're going to factor in the people who don't race too. And, okay, how long do they stay on before you drop them off? Or the people who race off distance. Maybe we'll get a bunch of 100-meter times or we'll get more 400-meter times and you don't really know what to do with them. But I think it's clear Jackson's won. I know people are going to argue about those other ones, and I get it. I get the pushback, and you could default into just the gold, silver, bronze.
That's boring.
You could default into 1 through 8 basically from Worlds, but Alfred wasn't in Worlds. She deserves to be up there. That's a clear person who made the most of the indoor season.
Thomas wasn't, but she was injured.
Right, and you assume she's in that final. She's finishing around that spot, and it's easy. Thomas made it easy on us because then she came back after World Championships and ran with the best in the world. But also it's tough too because someone coming back, maybe a little fresher at the end of the season. There's some athletes who are running Euros and Commonwealth and World Championships. Someone were just running 2 of the 3. A lot of different directions that it went after Worlds. That's why Worlds is good to use because we all assume everybody is going with that in mind. Their training is geared towards that race in mind. If you use some of these other events to decide who number 1 is and who number 10 is, it can be misleading.
So, what are your thoughts on Shelly and Fraser Price? We have her second. She is 30. How old is she now? 36, 37?
I don't know. You got her Wikipedia up. What's it say?
How old is?
You literally had the page up. I saw it on your screen, man.
She's 36. She was born in 1986. She's 36. So probably about to turn 37 eventually this year. I'm not sure when her birthday is. But
literally on her page right in front of you. You can see it.
I'm
December 27th.
Okay, so she took. Oh, December 27th? We're almost birthday twins, kind of. I'm December 30th.
Oh,
Hey, Shelly.
yeah. Okay.
Gotta love late December birthdays.
Almost around the same year. Too.
Greats are born then. LeBron James, Tiger Woods, Nick Simmons, Nathan Ritzenheim,
You just remember all of them. Shelly.
Dwayne Solomon,
Yeah.
Shelly and Fraser
Yeah,
Price.
you forgot the best out of that whole group is Shelly and Fraser Price.
Yeah. But do you think age is going to catch up with her? Eventually it does. Eventually you stop running fast because you're older.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like for some people, you're old when you're 32. For some people, you're old when you're 40. For like Tom Brady, you're old when you're 45.
Mm-hmm.
For Shelly Ann, when is age actually going to become a factor for her? Because it wasn't a factor for her last year at age 35. She was arguably probably her best season of her career, especially in the 100-meter side. So when predicting, what do you think?
Listen,
The
27. She missed 2017. She had this run of world championships.
Yeah.
Making all of them, getting at very least a silver, but usually some form of gold at any one of these meets forever. 2017 gives birth to her son, misses the world championship, so can't defend her title. And I'm sure a lot of people had questions at that point what was going to happen. I was at 2019 World Championships in Doha when there was a ton of questions about that, even after the early rounds. Like, oh, man. And then she did it. And I was like, oh, man, this feels big. But because it also feels like, hey, we don't know how many more of these there's going to be. So we should really cherish this one because she managed to pull it off. And then the world shuts down and we don't get a 2020 World Championship. But then we go back and then we go to
21.
Tokyo in 2021. And her lead up to that season, how was that?
It was good.
It was great. It wasn't just good. It was great. And then even after the Olympics didn't go the way she wanted to, but she was in the mix.
Yeah.
She was right there. And then post-World Championships, her and Elaine Thompson-Herah raced each other, ran a bunch of fast times, ran the turnout, some of the fastest times in her life. Okay, so is that it? No. Then you go to Eugene.
And she wins up it.
And she wins.
Yeah.
And she wins. And her times now are all from her last couple of years. Like you look at her best times list, they're all from the past couple of years. Long way to say, I'm not going to rule it out. Like I have to see it. I have to see a whole season
of her running subpar.
If you're saying, oh, now all of a sudden she's the 8th best woman in the world, then I need to see a whole year of her running
like the 8th
best woman because she is going to get, obviously, a lot of latitude here, especially given her championship experience and knowing how to get it right on the day. That's her MO because even when she has off races, she's still bringing home a medal.
Yeah, I think there was a famous, I think was it Max Kellerman or someone on ESPN tried to predict that Tom Brady was like is like on the back half of his career. And then since that statement, he won like 3 Super Bowls because he said it like at age 38 and then the next 7 years.
You end up looking silly.
You look stupid. When you try to predict the end of someone's career based on their age, you sometimes get it right, but then you also a lot of times can get it wrong. Yeah. And there's really no way to prove it because what old is to different people is very different. Some people, their age gap limit is 32. Some it's 35. Some it's 40. Like Shelly Ann, people probably were thinking it was the lower 30s, right? Back in 2019. And then she's like, oh, no, that's not my end timeline. No. I'm still going to go beyond that. And so now you're like, okay, now is it right? Is it 2023? Maybe not. Like it could be, Shelly Ann could be the same Shelly Ann we have, not just this year, but next year and also 2025 in Tokyo.
Yeah, I'm looking at her all-time personal top 10 on World Athletics site. This is the years, and they're all hundreds on here. 2021, 2022, 2021, 2022, 2022, 2022, 2022, 2022, 2022, 2012. Number 10 is 2012. All those other ones were 2022 or 2021.
You know what they all have in common? They have a 2 or a 1 or a 0 in it.
So you brought up Brady. Well done. You brought up Brady. But it's in some ways it's different than football. Football, get a better offensive line. Your defense is better. Your special teams is better.
Team sport.
And not just team sport. We have a time associated with her. We have a marker, a very concrete set of
Kipchoge
numbers.
Then, maybe.
Exactly. A concrete set of numbers that we can associate to what she's doing. So it's not just that she's winning. It's that she's putting out these sort of times. So that's why the answer is I don't know. I'm not going to pick it. And I would guess she's going to go on her terms. I would guess she would retire still on top at this point. That's what it feels like. Maybe not literally winning the gold, but she's going to retire when she's still in the mix for gold medals, I think.
Yeah.
Because I don't think she's going to drop. She's so good. She's not going to drop off at a fast enough rate to catch up to just time itself. So I think she's ranked second in the 200. 200 is not her best event. It's the 100. She's still really good. We saw it. She's going against Shericka Jackson, who's number 2 all time. Because there's also going to be some years where she's just going to run the 100.
Yeah.
You'd figure there's at least a year like that. All right. We ready for the 100? The men.
Yeah.
Men. Here we go. Nico, thank you, sir. Noah Lyles, number 1. No surprise. Kenny Bednarik, 2. Ari Knighton, 3. Joseph Fonbele, 4. Andre DeGrasse, 5. Fred Curley, 6. Dream Richards, 7. Norman in there at 8. And then Alexander Ogando, 9. And Aaron Brown is in 10th. So Lyles, clear number 1. There was some questions prior to Eugene, but he answered all of them in Eugene. And then post-Eugene, he went on an incredible tear and put himself in the mix for that Athlete of the Year conversation. Bednarik and Knighton, they helped complete that U.S. sweep. Fonbele, we've both been really big on him ever since his time at Florida. DeGrasse, we can talk more about him later. Curley, remember, made the 200 team, picked up that injury, but I don't think anybody's going to count him out based on how fast he is in the 1 and the 4. Richards was solid and then had a good indoor season as well, too. I put Michael Norman in there, even though he may not. Now, he might move. He might be the first one out because if he's never going to run the 200, we're not going to keep him in there.
Yeah.
But I've always I said it when he announced he was going to the 100. I said, why not the 2? I like him better in the 2 than the 1.
And he has some wins over Noah Lyles.
He has some wins. He had a 19.7 last year. So if you're looking at marks from last year, he stands out. We just don't know what he's going to do. So I kept him in there. And then Ogando and Brown are under the radar guys, but they both made the final in Eugene and both ran well at the Diamond League final too.
So no really debate on the Noah Lyles. Kenny B, Mr. Consistent. You think maybe you would go with like Knighton showing what he ran at the top of his game with his fast 19.5 in LSU, but Bednarik knows how to time his season perfectly, and I feel like he's going to be Mr. Consistent, and I think his floor is 3rd.
Whereas who's that? Knighton?
No, Bednarik.
Bednarik, yeah.
I think his floor is 3rd, which is a really high floor to have.
Very high floor, yeah.
Like, you can't get a higher floor.
Yeah. Your basement must be super big to have a floor that high.
Yeah, you don't even have it. He doesn't even have a basement.
Okay.
He lives in North Carolina with like those high rise like beach houses or so for flooding.
On stilts. Well, not just in North Carolina. Those in the Hollywood Hills too.
Yeah,
they got the
North
stilts.
Carolina.
Yeah.
So like his baseline 3rd.
Okay.
3rd floor.
Gotcha.
You have to go up an elevator to get to his basement.
Okay.
Go up an elevator to get to his
going.
basement. I also think he's going to win the world title this year.
Have you said that before?
I have,
and
I'm saying I'm going to continue to say it
Keep
until
going. Keep going.
I'm going to be saying it while they're 100 meters into the 200 meter final.
All right, keep going.
But I think the question here is, what is this? Knighton is so young.
Yeah.
And he ran so well, so young, and has shown a good level of improvement year over year. I think his 2022 was better than his 2021.
Yeah.
But for his 2023 to be better than his 2022, he's going to have to beat the American record holder. Or he's going to have to beat a Kenny B who's running phenomenal.
Or a Fred Curley.
There could be a situation where Knighton gets better, but I could see Knighton run better in 2023, but not even medal. I could see him run better in 2023 and then lose to his training partner, Fonbele. He trains with Fonbele, right?
Yeah, they did last year at least. Yeah.
Like, which is crazy that you can get better, but just the people around the 200 is so good this year that even your improvement may not result in an improvement of your place.
Yeah, then if he starts to lock in the consistent times of the, it's not even about the 19.4s. It's just, all right, the consistent 19.7s. I think that's what's going to take him to the next levels. Because the 19.49 and the 19.42, all that stuff will come with the consistency.
Yeah.
Noah Lyles has taught us that.
Yeah.
Right? You bang out enough in just get your race pattern nailed down, make it so you're consistently, you don't just need a world championship type setting or a US type setting to run fast. You can do it all the time. DeGrasse was the interesting one because it was tough to pick him. I know he had a rough year last year with injuries, but he's a guy I'm just not going to give up on until we see him go through a championship where he doesn't make any noise. And he made noise at the championship last year.
4x1.
Yeah, it was at the last possible moment, but Andre DeGrasse let you know he was there. Now, he raced after the World Championships as well. None of it was crazy good. And listen, this 5 spot, he might even move down a little bit once the racing starts, because the one thing we know about DeGrasse is he's focused on peaking when it counts, and he always gets into form, or usually gets into form, all things considered, when it's time to go. So some people might say he's too high at 5, but it's just I'm going off of history, and I'm going off of the fact that the World Championship race that lets you know who he was the 4x1. It wasn't the 200. I know he had a lot of injury, health sort of issues last year. Curly at 6, you could say, other than Knighton, actually a lot of these guys have a pretty high ceiling, because Knighton, it's like youth. Fanbele, it's the start. Curly is just figuring out the 200. There's a lot of room for improvement in a number of these guys.
For some reason, I just don't see Curly getting better than the 200. I see him getting better in the 100 this year. Like I can see him PRing by, what's his PR?
76, right?
I guess I could see Curly break the American record in the 100.
See, I feel the opposite.
I just don't think he's a good 200 meter runner.
I would bet more on the 200 PB than the 100 PB.
Well, you can PB in the PBing in the 100's harder though, because it's a more impressive mark for him to PB with his current mark.
You literally just said you don't see him getting any better in the 200. That's
PBing. But better in the 200 means going from the times he's running to running like
1976
Knighton and Noah Lyles type times. Okay. Like I see Fred Curly more likely breaking the American record in the 100 than him running 19.4.
Okay, fair, but he doesn't need to run 19.4 to be a medal winner at all. He might need
I don't know.
He might need to be 19.
Because Knighton has run 19.4. Yep. Lyles has run 19.3.
I don't think they're all going to do it the same day.
Ben Derek hasn't done that, but he's going to win the world title. Yeah. So
is he? You haven't said that yet. I love it. Okay, but no, what I'm saying is, on that day, he doesn't need to be that quick, is what I'm saying. Kenny B's 1968 is his personal best. That was from Tokyo. I just think Curly's obviously got a lot of room to grow and figure it out. And if he can, then he's going to be really good in that.
Also, like how Curly, Richards, and Norman. I mean, Richards, he's a 200 meter guy, but he was also kind of 400 a little bit during the college days. Seeing like the 3 400 type guys, Curly, Richards, and Norman, all in the top 8 and 6, 7, 8.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
All right, Norman. Again, we've talked about Norman a bunch. I don't know if we need to do more.
We don't need to do
more on that.
We're tapped out on Norman.
Well,
you have a quota on the amount of Norman talk you can do per week. And it's Friday. It's Monday, so you don't use them all up now.
I've always enjoyed talking about Michael Norman. He's a great athlete.
You love talking about the Mount Sac race that he ran in April.
43:45.
Yeah, you have that poster board written on your wall.
So does this happen with you? Sometimes just stick in your head and you can't forget them, and then other times that are probably more important to know, you'll just forget within the sport. Is that the case with you? Like certain athletes, times do they stick in your head more than others?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. For some reason, the 43:45 is just ingrained in my head. I can't dislodge it. But if you said, what did Curly run last year at Worlds to win the 100? Like I know he ran the 9.76 in the first round.
I remember that.
Of course you do. That started a whole thing. But what did he run the final?
I have no idea.
I don't remember, but I remember Michael Norman's 43:45. It's just weird.
It's because you've been talking about it for your entire life.
No, since he did it, which was
it's like that
2018, 2019.
It's like that Jim Carrey movie about the number. Was it 33 or something?
Well, I just thought this guy's gonna break the world record and be the first guy to break 44 or 43. That's what I thought that meant at the time. Ogando, Brown, those guys are solid. They're 9 and 10. Other people that didn't get on here, you can talk about Andrew Hudson for Jamaica. I'd like to see some of the like Blake and Oblique Seville.
Yeah.
Get in some twos.
What about Mr. Matthew Bowling?
Yeah. I guess he'd be in the next 10, right? if we went 20 deep
Yeah.
on these.
I mean, we're in
Which
the fastest time indoors.
We are not going to go 20 deep because there are a lot of events already. So we're spreading ourselves out
Stopping at
across
10.
the events. Yeah. All right. What's our next event that we're going to rank? Not today, but what's the next one we're going to do?
I don't know. Let's do 1500.
Ooh, I like it. We're just alternating between
Going back and
sprint
forth, boom, boom.
mid-distance.
And then we'll
Yeah.
do some hurdles.
You'll never guess who my number one is.
In
each
what?
of these.
The 1500?
Yeah.
You a Whiteman guy?
No. Well, I'm an Ingebrigtsen.
Okay. Stan.
Trying to think, what's going to be the hardest event to get to number one?
What do you mean?
To pick a number. All these number ones seem pretty definitive.
Obvious?
And you could say, okay, Kevin, that's because they won the world title. But the person in second got silver medal. They should be the clear number two, and yet they're not.
Maybe 5K?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, both men and women on the 5K. Because
Probably more women on the 5K. Though.
Yeah, but would you
10K. 10K is hardest.
Would you go Jakob in the 5?
10K. 10K. Men's 10K.
Women's hurdles, high hurdles. I mean, Amazon's a world record holder.
You know, you're gonna put her first, but like men's 10K is the hardest.
Steeple, no.
I don't even know who won the men's 10K. Who won the men's 10K?
Shericka.
Did he?
Yeah. Let me just Google that real quick.
I think he. Okay, he ran like ass in the 5K then.
Wow, language, dude. I'm trying to get.
We're trying to get monetized.
Yeah.
No, yeah, because I remember Cheptegei was interested. I was like, he was not like, we were like, oh, is Cheptegei going to do it again? And he does do it. I get that makes sense in 10K. And then he doesn't run well in the 5K. He finishes like outside the top 5 or something like that in the 5K.
5K, he was 9th.
Yeah, so that's what which is crazy. Like,
Didn't even score.
Doesn't even score points for Team Uganda. They might need to get a new transfer to come in or something.
Yeah.
Well,
that was Jakob's show.
I think because the 10K, yes, Cheptegei, the fastest guy technically, and he's won the title. But then you were like, well, speed matters, and then you look at people with great kicks, and you're like, should you put the kicker first over Cheptegei?
Yeah. Well, also they never run the 10K, so
Exactly.
we'll never know. We'll never be held accountable until Budapest finals.
They run the 10K so little they don't even run it at Worlds sometimes.
They just every other year.
Every other year, they're just like, we're not gonna do it this year.
All right, we're to the next segment, which is
you're really bad at doing
no it's
transitioning segments.
informal.
You went
all the time.
This is the next segment.
I was trying to introduce a new segment. It's going to be called the Let Gordon Cook segment because you're talking about a potential record
Yes.
at Penn Relay. So
Yes.
break this down. Why do you think the men's collegiate 4x1 record could get broken at Penn Relays?
Okay, it's not the 4x1. First of all,
So let
we're
me try that
talking
again.
about.
Explain to me why the men's 4x8 collegiate record
Well,
could get
before
broken.
we talk, the first reason why is this team, Iowa State, is going to the Penn Relays. They announced it a few weeks ago. Pretty big deal. Iowa State normally goes to Drake Relays. They're changing it up, going to the Penn Relays, both the men's and women's teams. So I'm excited for that. And you look at what Iowa State has, and you're like, wait, they got a lot of good 800-meter runners. Wait, do they have 4 enough to like flirt with potentially a collegiate record? So I did some little research. So let's bring up the current top 10 4x8 records, 4x8 marks in collegiate history.
Yeah.
Do you know who owns it?
I didn't until you told me.
Okay. It is
And-
Arizona State.
Of course, the 84 team.
Yeah. The 84 team, which is crazy. The number 1 team is Arizona State, 708 in 1984. Number 2 team is Penn State, 711, 1985. And then the Virginia team, 712, which I think had Robbie Andrews in 2011.
84 and 85, some say the golden era of men's 4x8s.
But that's crazy. We're talking about records from the 80s, before I was born.
That one's older than me, even.
Older than you, and you are old.
Barely. By a month and a half.
Month and a half. Who would have thought
Yeah.
that a month and a half after this record would go down,
Yeah.
you would be sitting on a podcast
Yeah.
with another person who was born after that time, talking about the record getting broken.
Several years later, but yeah, I get you. All right.
But Arizona State, all right, so you're like 708, 96.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
How do you run
break
that?
that down.
So Iowa State has a transfer that I didn't know they got from Miami, Ohio.
Oh, your guy. You
The
talked
man
about him
who
last
I
year.
didn't know was British,
Finley McClear.
Finley McClear. And so, Nico, if you bring up the graphic below that one, we have the top 4 PBs from Iowa State. Finley McClear's run 145. Jason Gomez has run 146. Sebastian Gentil has run 146. And Darius Kipiego has run 147. Add up their PBs combined, that equals 706. You may want to zoom out because you're not showing the times there, Nico. We want to show the full graphic so we can see the times. But 7:06.
Let Nico cook too,
well,
man. You got it.
He's just showing the names. You got to show the full thing.
It's not just you cooking here. It's Nico's got to cook, man. Come on.
So 7:06.11. That's 2 seconds faster, maybe almost 3 seconds faster than the collegiate record. So obviously they're not all going to run their PBs in this relay, but if your PBs all add up to 3 seconds faster than the collegiate record, you can break it.
You got a shot. Now here's the problem.
What's the problem?
Well, I'm going to ask you this because I haven't watched a ton of 4x8s since high school. The state I ran in, we had the 4x8 all the way to state. Every dual meet, there was a 4x8. So a lot of 4x8s. But then you leave high school and you realize this is not an event that's run that often.
Yeah.
They did a World Relays a couple times. I'm guessing it's not going to follow the pattern that the 4x mile falls into sometimes, where it turns into a jog and tactics take over. Do you think they're going to go and just go for it? Because 800-meter runners a little bit different than milers in that regard.
You know, it could go one of two ways.
Slow or fast?
It could go slow or fast.
But
they can either go for it or they can not go for it.
Do you think
they
they're
can
going
go for it or for the win?
Do you think they're going there with 7:08 in mind? Is my question.
I think so.
Okay, and then my follow-up
Why
is...
not? It's like, hey, we have it. 3 of the guys are seniors. What's the point of, like, just getting the win when you, like, whoa, what if we did something that's never been done before since 1984?
It's pretty tough to... Well, it hasn't even been done in 1984. They
Yeah.
ran 7:08 in 1984. They didn't run faster than that in 1984. I just wonder, how realistic is it to expect a 146 out of someone on the third leg of a 4x in a relay if they're way ahead? Do you think they'll have good competition?
You'll have some good competition. The first 2 legs will be it's going to be hard. The third leg is going to be the hardest one because and the last leg, right? But if they're chasing the time, why not? Just go for it. People can do this. Like, it's possible. You just have to want it. You have to have that
That's all it is.
you.
That's all it is.
You just got to want it.
Just need to want it. Yeah.
But it is, I talked to the coach. It is on their mind. So I think it's possible.
Well, let's just compare it to a mid-distance race last year where we thought the record was vulnerable. Well, there was a couple of them, actually. But one where they actually got it. The women's 4x15. They were talking about it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like, they knew that they wanted the record. And those 2 teams, Arkansas and NC State, both ran with that record in mind. Contrast that with the 4x mile for the men. Now, maybe they were talking about it. Admittedly, we weren't doing as much follow-up with them as we were kind of more focused because we were doing a feature on the women's side. But they ran it as if they were just trying to get a wheel, which is cool. Go get a wheel. Like, that's awesome. I think that's different teams are having different goals. But we all know that 4x mile record can go down, too, on the men's side.
Oh, yeah.
Can totally go down, especially with the current era of how fast everybody's running these mid-distance races. But you have to want it, and you have to go for it. And I think part of it is if you make your intentions clear publicly, then other teams are going to say, all right, well, I guess we need to know that we're going out this fast, and we all buckle up and get ready for it. Now, maybe there's a group text on the side with all these coaches where they do that, but at least publicly, we only heard it really strongly being echoed for one of those mid-distance relays last year, and that's the one where it happened.
Yeah.
Right? There's a world where you could see all of these mid-distance records get broken at this meet, correct?
Yeah, the outdoor DMR record could get broken.
Yeah.
Or indoor or / outdoor.
Overall, yeah.
Because Oklahoma State's going there.
But but the women's 4x15,
Yeah,
the record
that's gone. That's gonna be gone.
Well, it could be. It depends how they run.
They got better. They added what's her name? Amaris. I don't know how to say her name.
Taisma, yeah.
Taisma.
Yeah. But my point is, they also had good competition too. There was 2 teams going for it, which made it work.
We'll get
But like last year, the Ole Miss men, we thought, okay, maybe they can get a run at it. It didn't happen, and then that 4x mile for the men turned into a tactical race.
We'll see. So, we're what, a month away? 30 days away?
We are actually 30 days away today.
That's big.
Saw the graphic. Yep.
You excited?
Yeah, I get to go back. It was so much fun last year. I had so much fun. It was cold, a little cold the first couple days.
It wasn't that cold, was it?
Well, you're from there.
It was hot the final day.
Yeah, final day was nice.
I was not prepared for that.
You took me to a Phillies game.
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
That was the coldest I've been at a sporting event that wasn't ice hockey.
Yeah, we weren't prepared for that.
It was actually no. I've been to some football games that have been colder, but yeah, we weren't dressed appropriately. But no, it's awesome, and now I know more about it. It's going to be even better.
It's California, man. You can know why it's such a big deal.
It was great. It was great, and I think this year it looks like it's going to be even better because we're hearing more and more about the quality teams that are coming out. So I'm excited. Penn Relays, it's going to be live on FloTrack.
Live on Flow. Also live on Flow. London Marathon.
Yes, in
America.
Yes. I was having you check my work there. I didn't.
No, it's not Canadian only. No,
Okay.
we have the U.S. right.
Gotcha. Okay, London Marathon news. Here we go. Throw this one up there, Nico. How about that segue, Gordon? Great job. Some rough news for American marathoning fans, though. Emily Sisson.
So, but still watch the race.
Yeah, still watch the race. But, well, it's going to be a great race.
It was. Yeah, we still got great international fields. Safan Hassan.
Yeah.
A few others on the men's and women's
We're
side.
going to do, the plan is, right, the watch party
Yeah,
still?
I'm going to be on the East Coast, too, so I'm going to be up even earlier.
Oh, so I can't go to your house this time?
No. You can still come to my house. I'll give you the key.
No, in the East Coast? Can I fly out?
Yeah, you can fly to the East Coast, yeah.
Okay. Man, this is going to be tough. I didn't think this was going to happen. Dang it. Okay, we're going to have to figure that out later.
Yeah.
But we'll worry about it.
I can literally give you a key to my house if you want to do it from my house.
No, I could do it. I don't think anybody's going to wake up if I start yapping at 3 in the morning. Anyway, we're waking up likely for it. But sad news, Sisson announced she's scratching. D'Amato had previously scratched out. So it looked like it was going to be the most
1 versus 2.
most recent American record holders battling. And Sisson coming off that really fast time in Chicago. I wanted to see how she measured up to this field. But we're unfortunately not going to get that in London. I saw her post on Instagram. I was going to pull it up. I don't exactly know what the injury was. She said just there it is. Emily Sisson. My bad. Let me get this. Here we go. Unfortunately, I had to withdraw from the London Marathon. I tweaked something in my hip during a workout a few weeks ago. Just didn't quite heal fast enough. I've taken a few days off since then. I've been slowly increasing my runs and things. Feeling a lot better, feeling fortunate. It isn't something a lot worse, just bad timing. Initially, I was pretty bummed, but I'm going to pivot to some shorter races this summer instead now, and I will do a marathon later this year. I will keep my race schedule posted. Now, this is the bummer with marathons because you just got 2 chances to do them a year, maybe 3 if you're lucky. So when one minor thing goes wrong, you don't get that opportunity. And for a field like this, you really don't get that opportunity often at all. So I'm disappointed, mostly because I wanted to see her versus D'Amato, but also you wanted to see her versus that top field.
You mentioned it sucks because they only do like 2 a year, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about how the 10K kind of sucks because they only do like 1 a year.
Yeah.
Maybe this is probably a bad idea, but I'm just going to say it out there. I'm going to work it through as I say it out loud. But imagine a world where the longest distance that elite runners competed at the professional level was a 10,000 meter run. And that the marathon and a half marathon just didn't exist. And that the pinnacle of the endurance athlete, the long distance athlete, was 10,000 meters and not 26 miles. Kipchoge was trying to break whatever in the 10K, not 2 hours in the marathon. Mm-hmm. The American records were all about the 10K and not about the marathon. And because of this, you would do it more often. There wouldn't be just a spring marathon and a fall marathon. There would be 5 10Ks in a year for all the best distance runners. Yeah. And that if you chose to run further than 10,000 meters, it was in the category of ultra marathoning and trail racing. That was more of like a community participation type world. Could you get behind this?
No, but here's another scenario. What if the shoes develop such a good point where people could run 4 marathons in a year? That would be a good thing.
Oh, so the recovery was easier?
The preparation, too, and the recovery. Yeah. Just the foot. Because that's what you hear some of these athletes talk about, just the differences. They can go harder more often because of the shoes. Now, marathon, it's different than running a 5K or 10K on a track, but maybe there's some new advances that don't increase the stack height that allow them to recover.
Do you think the
quicker.
fact that as humans, we always want to push ourselves to the fastest we can be, and because they want
to go the longest.
They want to go longest and fastest, and because of that, they decide to mutate the sport into a twice a year viewing experience because they're prioritizing time over competition.
Well, other than the history of the marathon, which is deep and storied, and we all know that, the other thing that makes the marathon what the marathon is the mass participation element of it. And the reason the mass participation element of it is so popular is, as one part, talk about the desire for pushing the limits of human endurance, but also scarcity. Because it only happens a couple times a year, that's why people like to do it. right? It happens once. If you live in a city that has a marathon, there's one a year.
Yeah.
Maybe some cities have multiple marathons a year, but for the most part, you have one opportunity to do it. And that is seen in terms of participation element as an appealing factor of it. Like, hey, let's all train. This one big day, we're going to have this big celebration.
It doesn't get diluted.
Exactly. So that's the reason why so many people are running it. And one of the effects of so many people running it is race directors can pay really fast people to come to their races, which props up the elite side of this.
No, I understand why we're in the world where I'm just saying that the fact that two of the best distance runners in U.S. history, that we designed a sport where we only get to see them once or twice a year, that doesn't seem really good for the popularity of that sport.
I get it from if you take
you only get to watch LeBron James play basketball once, and if you miss, it's just like makes no sense.
Yeah, if you look at it from a macro level, you can see, all right, man, that is kind of strange. Like, I'm a fan of this athlete. Well,
and all you see him is on one random Sunday morning.
No, what you see is you see their Strava though, right? And that's part of being a fan when you talk about these endurance athletes. And I'm not sure how it works in other endurance sports, but I can only imagine some of the fans are really also into the journey of the athlete more so than the
actual result,
the actual race and the result. And oh my gosh,
the buildup is part of the story.
Yeah, look at how long this bike ride was that they just posted, or look, this rock climber did this crazy thing, and here's this clip of it. Like it's different than the traditional, hey, I'm going to see this person compete 10 to 50 times in a year type sport. Now there are some people who are not into that and just want to see them race and enjoy the sport purely from like that traditional professional sports lens. But I do think these athletes get a lot of attention, get a lot of sponsorship deals because for the people following them, it is a 52-week-a-year endeavor. They're not racing 52 weeks of the year, but they're following their training and what they're doing 52 weeks a year because they themselves are also trying to run that race too.
But like, there's a difference between following journeys and following a sport.
Do you know how LeBron James works out? Let's just use that. Like, how many people are doing LeBron James's workouts? And he's a famous example because, he spends $1 gajillion on his body. No, there's not that many people doing that. There's a bunch of people trying to figure out what Eliud Kipchoge does in his training.
Well, it's because the participation.
And emulate it. Yeah.
Like anyone can put on shoes and run.
Right, exactly. And that's why there's these athletes who create interest.
But that means they're lifestyle athletes and not professional sport athletes.
No, they're professional sports athletes they're like, in a way, like boxers. You see them a couple times a year. That's it. But you're following the journey too. I don't know if people follow the journey of boxers, but you get my point. You see them only a couple times a year.
That's true. Yeah, UFC people, they only...
I mean, I don't know how many times UFC
maybe
people
twice
fight.
a year?
Nico, you know UFC. You seem like a UFC guy. How many times a year do UFC fighters fight? God, Nico. Not more than 15. That seems like a lot of fights. Someone will know in the chat. How many times?
The chat's talking about the 200 still. The chat.
Good. They committed. They saw the title of the show.
And that's what we're going to talk about.
And they're staying focused.
They're going to talk about London. They're going to talk about
the big fighters. The big fighters. The people whose names Gordon and I would recognize. Okay. So that's somewhat similar to marathon.
Headphone-less episode today.
But you can hear. Yeah. He said once a quarter. What he said if you didn't hear him. All right. We got anything else?
Nah, man.
That's it.
Hell of a show. Like and subscribe. We need to get to 20,000 subscribers by NCAA championship weekend, or Kevin is kicked off the podcast.
Yeah, it'll be like this.
It's just gonna be me, and I'll be in the middle. Do you want this? You don't want this. So subscribe, and you won't just get me. You'll get this guy.
I hope you do 2 mics if it is just you, and you sit in the middle, so it's bad audio on both. Like you don't get the benefit of good audio.
I thought I was gonna have a take against myself.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey,
I can do that.
This is Gordon reporting from the blue microphone.
Blue versus red.
Should
we call it blue versus red?
That would be the first time people have ever done that.
People will love that content.
All right, we're good. FloTrack podcast at
we're good.
gmail.com. We're good. We're good with the show.
Yeah, we're good.
Show's good.
Hell of a show.
Thanks to Nico for producing. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.